A fortnight after Romania, Poland's turn at a presidential runoff where the pro-EU candidate faces uncertain odds. Warsaw's Liberal mayor, Rafał Trzaskowski, will need the kind of boost in turnout, perhaps, that propelled his counterpart from Bucharest to victory, Nicoşur Dan, who last weekend came to campaign for the candidate from Donald Tusk's Civic platform party. Trzaskowski's not the only one with celebrity endorsements. Donald Trump dispatching his director of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, to stump for nationalist right candidate Karol Nawrocki. The Law and Justice Party of the outgoing Andrzej Duda hopes to rally the 20% of voters who veered further to the right in the first round. In a nation where living standards have skyrocketed since joining the EU 2 decades ago, why are so many citizens eager to elect Eurosceptics? Would a Nawrocki win call time after 2 years on the efforts of Prime Minister Tusk to undo the peace's contentious rule of law reforms? Currently, the former president of the European Council, seen here with leaders from France and Germany, has positioned himself at the heart of Brussels policy making of late, particularly since Donald Trump returned to office. Looking ahead, which directions do Poles want? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at Poland's nail-biter election. Joining us from the Polish city of Poznan, Bartłomiej Wróblewski, member of the Polish parliament from the Law and Justice Party of the outgoing Andrzej Duda. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
From Warsaw, Wojciech Szybelski, editor-in-chief of political journal Visegrad Insight, chair of the Polish brand of the Respublika Foundation think tank. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Historian Jacques Krupnik, director emeritus of research at the French Political Science Institute Sciences Po. Good to see you.
Pleasure.
And from the French Loire Valley town of Richelieu, Julia Laureau, research fellow at the Université Catholique de Louvain, the Catholic University of Louvain in Belgium. Welcome.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
You can listen, by the way, listen, like, and subscribe to the France 24 debate wherever podcasts are streamed. Now, President of Poland is a mostly ceremonial post, but the head of state does have veto powers, and those matter. They have the last 2 years. 2 weeks ago, turnout reached 67%, the highest for any first round of a Polish presidential election in post-communist history. And that means, I'll begin with you, Jacques Krupnik, we saw that between rounds of the Romanian presidential election, turnout went up. We're already at 2/3. There isn't much, we're not expecting a huge boost then in turnout this time around.
Well, there could be a boost, and if there was a boost, of course, it may make a difference, because this is going to be a very tight race, apparently, if we believe the opinion polls. So, yes, the turnout will be important, and the question is, can the first round was won by Trzaskowski, the mayor of Warsaw, but narrowly, only 2 points ahead. And his reservoir, his sort of possibility of winning votes from his government coalition is much smaller than what is available theoretically on the right for Mr. Nawrocki, for his rival. So the big question is, can Trzaskowski, in the final round of the campaign, can he mobilize those votes, and turnouts will matter, yeah.
So he'll need the votes from the left, he'll need a higher
young people,
turnout.
He will need women vote, he will have to mobilize, yeah.
Now, we had dueling rallies last Sunday in the capital. Rafał Trzaskowski putting the accent on judicial reform.
It's high time that honesty prevailed. It's high time that righteousness prevailed. It's high time that justice prevailed. It's high time that truth prevailed. This is what's at stake in these elections.
Meanwhile, Karol Nawrocki talking up values.
I am the voice of all of those whose cries do not reach Donald Tusk today, the voice of all those who do not want Polish schools to be ideologized, Polish agriculture to be destroyed, and our freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to operate and share opinions online to be taken away.
Bartolomew Wróblewski, what is the issue that will make or break this election?
Well, there are many questions. Many Polish are afraid of the government, Donald Tusk government, and they don't want to strengthen the government, so they reject Trzaskowski. Trzaskowski is very far on the left side, and that's another reason many of us are against of him. As it was presented in your a few minutes ago, he's ideologically is very leftist candidate. He's for centralization of Europe, for federalization of Europe, for many other things which are not good for our country. So we are against him. Karol Nawrocki is you have presented him as far right candidate. I would not say he's far right candidate. He's right candidate. It's true, but during this election we had at least 3 candidates who were, you might call them far right candidates. But Nawrocki surely he is not. He is for good relationship with America, but it does not mean he is against Europe. But it's true, he is against further centralization of Europe, of federalization of Europe. There are many questions during this election.
Yeah, what I said was that there are 2 candidates that are further to the right from him. Wojciech Cibelski, let me ask you, is the mayor of Warsaw left-wing?
Well, not the last time I have checked. He definitely is a catch-all. He comes from the center-right party of Donald Tusk. So
it's not true. It's not true.
Specific, rather specific to call someone who is a Christian Democrat far left. But that's a privilege of being a politician to describe the political context they operate in. I think the agenda of Donald Tusk is also being described as far left, while in most of Europe it is considered center-right or even right-wing, given his stance on the migration, border control, the primacy of security, armament, and so far. So there is a very dubious political language in Poland that tries to describe the nature of the differences between the candidates, and it speaks volumes about the nature of the polarization in the country, where citizens themselves are oftentimes lost in this mutual accusation of who lies more, who's the victim of certain manipulation. And in this context, Rafał Trzaskowski speaks on the issues that are truly important to all of the society. We just heard in the brief material you spoke about. It's about justice, truth, restoring certain meaning to these words. Let alone if a politician is capable, one single politician of restoring that. But the issues are important, and these issues are important probably to those on the left and as well those on the right side of the political spectrum. And the nature of the race, the key bounty in terms of electoral bounty for the camp of Mr. Trzaskowski is to mobilize centrist voters who did not go the first round, who used to vote for the so-called third way, the coalition partner in the government, and who abstained in the first round of the of the presidential elections, which the amount of these voters is roughly over 1 million. And they probably are avoiding the extreme polarization. So it's a tricky thing, as we describe both Mr. Nawrocki reaching for the far right or extreme right candidates electorate, and at the same time Mr. Trzaskowski reaching out to the center, but also appealing to the left. He does not do a lot of messaging about the left-wing ideals, also because the left is mobilized against the far-right candidate, or however you want to call it, a PIS candidate, of the candidate of the party the PIS sports, which is Mr. Nawrocki.
We can maybe call up again the first round results just to remind our viewers once again just to how uncertain it is. Neither one of the two candidates who made the runoff are anywhere close to being in a comfort zone with those kinds of results. Again, on a high turnout, 67%. And you mentioned there, Wojciech Szybelski, how the current government is in a coalition. Julia Leroux, if the Civic platform candidate loses, could that coalition fall apart?
Yes, it could be a risk. Because this victory could exacerbate the divisions in government, in the sense that it's a very eclectic coalitions and they are divided on several points, and it could be also expected to see continued resistance from these presidents, and this could in the end lead to downfall the government or an early legislative elections to solve the problem. Very hard to implement the coalition basis, and also just to.
Julie, I'm going to interrupt you because the sound is unfortunately dipping in and out. We're going to try to call you back quickly and fix that. Apologies for that. But yeah, we understood from what you said that even though the post can be largely ceremonial, the president of Poland has veto powers, and if the peace wins, it will certainly break the momentum of a coalition that's in power now between the center-right and the left. And one of the big surprises of the first round, we saw the same gender gap among the youth as we saw in recent elections in the United States and Germany. Women, according to exit polls, going more for the left, and the men going for the far right. Correspondent Gulliver Cragg has more.
If there are still some posters of Adrian Zandberg visible in this small western Polish town, it's thanks to Bartosz Kornacki, who campaigned tirelessly for the left-wing candidate.
No niestety, zajebane po raz kolejny.
He says he was fighting a losing battle with fans of the far-right Sławomir Mencen, an ultra-liberal economist whom Bartosz used to support.
Byłem zwiedziony tą.
He convinced me with this dream that I would get rich if only I worked hard. But I got a reality check when I lost my first job and was broke. I basically got zero help from the state. And if Mencen had been in power, it would have been even worse.
W kraju pana Mencena kończyłoby się to jeszcze gorzej.
Poland's youth are frustrated, he says, not to be benefiting more from the country's remarkable economic growth.
Stać nas na to.
We are now the world's 21st biggest economy. We could afford to have better working conditions, but we don't see the same policies over here as we see in other EU countries.
Zobaczyć w innych krajach Unii Europejskiej.
With property prices here rising twice as fast as wages, Bartosz was attracted by Zandberg's promise to build affordable housing.
I have a decent salary, around the national average, yet I'm still renting and spending more than a third of my income on rent.
Among under-30s, the leftist candidate came in second, with the far-right Mencen in the lead. Both benefited from an anti-establishment mood among frustrated youth.
I voted for Zandberg. We're fed up of both the main parties. They are all liars.
Far-right and far-left often coexist within the same couple here, though it's more often the other way round.
Mencen chce Mensen wants to punish women for having abortions. I think his supporters don't know what they're actually voting for. They just see on TikTok how he's got his own bar and brewery.
These young women said they would vote for Trzaskowski in the second round as the pro-EU and pro-Ukraine candidate. But others here told me they mistrusted both Brussels and Kiev and would vote either for the nationalist Nawrocki or for no one at all.
Jacques, a couple of interesting points in that report. Yeah, Poland's grown a lot in the last 2 decades, but high property prices and big inequality and a feeling that perhaps the welfare state of old is being unraveled.
Unraveled is probably excessive, but it's true that the economic success of Poland is staggering. This is not just the last couple of years or so. It's a story of the last, 20, 25 years. It's a remarkable success story. And what is astonishing to me is that the government is unable to sell the success story. Polish economy is doing well in relative terms. Now, not everybody is benefiting from it the same way, so there's inequality. And indeed, we've heard from one of your interviewees, people who are actually struggling. And the other interesting question is, how come the left is not picking up the social discontent? If there is inequality, if there is social discontent, how come the left is not picking up those votes? And the interesting thing, this is not just a Polish case. In Poland, in Hungary, in the Czech Republic, the left is nowhere. I mean, it's, in Poland, it's under 10%. In Hungary, it's not even. In Czech Republic, it's not even in parliament. So this is very interesting.
And in Romania, the winner, Nicoșur Dan, his party, again, it's
center-right party,
yeah.
Pro-European. So this is it. You have the dividing line is between the centrist, liberal, pro-European party and a nationalist conservative party. And this is what you find in Poland, but you find it elsewhere in a different form. And Romania was an interesting case recently.
So, Julien Leroux, what do you make of this, the youth vote, and how, again, there's this gender gap between, in the first round, a lot of young men who voted far right, and a lot of young women who voted for the left?
This is actually a crucial issue in the Polish elections. If we compare what happened to the election in 2023, it's mainly thanks to the vote of women that the ruling coalition is now in power. And also, the women represent the vast majority of Polish electorate, actually, and they tend to vote more for liberal or leftist parties. And it's even stronger for young women. And on the contrary, young men are more on the far right. So this is very important. But what could be a kingmaker in this election, again, would be the big mobilization of the female electorate, because they represent the vast majority of the Polish electorate. And if they mobilize more than the men, actually, it could be a sign of victory for Trzaskowski.
All right, so one kingmaker could be gender-related. The other kingmaker was the man who finished third in the first round. Since a week ago Sunday, both candidates paying a visit to the third man, the far-right's Sławomir Mencen. He garnered nearly 15% of the vote. To get his endorsement, well, he set out an 8-point list of demands to the finalists, and they included this one on foreign policy.
I will not allow Polish soldiers to be sent to Ukrainian territory. This should be an absolute formality because you both claim you will not send Polish soldiers to Ukraine. It's the prerogative of the president. Point 5, I will not sign a law ratifying Ukraine's entry to NATO.
Let me ask you then, Bartolomew Wawlewski, do you agree with both of those points?
Yes.
And so Ukraine should not join NATO, is what you're saying?
Well, it's not question if it should join NATO. The question if Ukraine should join NATO now. There are some. First of all, there is a war at the Ukraine, so it's not possible. But there are serious questions which should be resolved before Ukraine would integrate with NATO and European Union.
Is that the broad consensus, Wojciech Szybelski, inside of Poland when it comes to Ukraine?
When it comes to sending troops to Ukraine, there is absolute and very clear declaration of the government, and I believe this is hand in hand with the opposition, that we are not sending any troops to Ukraine. There are other priorities that help Ukraine and the West and fulfill NATO duties that are on the territory of Poland. So that's not an issue. The membership of Ukraine, however, as a prospect, not now, not today, but as a prospect, as an objective, is a clear message that is a message defying ambition of Vladimir Putin. And in that sense, I'm quite surprised that the representative of the of the camp that it holds Polish sovereignty so much would possibly speculate on the narrative sponsored by Mr. Putin that eventually would lead to Russian troops on the Polish border if they capture Ukraine. So that is something that really divides Polish strategic mindset when it comes to Ukraine, simply because of this electoral trick with Mr. Mencken putting this on the agenda. And I have to say that it is more of a trick of strategic communication and a trap that PIS candidate has fallen into, admitting that he would sign this to capture voters of Mr. Mencken. But it's really too simplistic to answer it in this form.
Bartholomew Wróblewski, did the peace candidate fall into a trap?
I'm not sure if we could say it. Law and Justice was and is probably the most skeptical party in Europe as for Russia, and we warned the whole Europe before Vladimir Putin, and we started it over 20 years ago. Unfortunately, Europe did not want to listen to it. It is one thing. Another thing is how to handle now. We should not complicate the political situation, and we would like that Ukraine adjust its politics to Polish interests. There are two main objectives in Poland as for Ukrainian policy in the last years. First thing is new identity of Ukraine, which has been building in this country. It relies on the cult of war criminals, Shushkevich and Bandera, and we are afraid of it. Nobody could imagine there is Adolf Hitler Strasse in Berlin or Hermann Goering Square in Vienna. So we would not like to have this in Ukraine. And the second question is economical question, which is important. We should try to adjust our interests, for example, in the field of agriculture. So Polish are afraid of Ukrainian agriculture. So integration with European Union is possible, but we think it should be the problems should be resolved. As for the war, we think we should do all what is possible to make a peace between Ukraine and Russia, because we don't want to do anything what could widespread the conflict. At the moment, there is no other possibility than peace talks.
Jacques Rupnik, the French president, also says that at some point you're going to have to get to the peace negotiating table. And, but let me ask you, because you heard earlier Julia Leroux saying that a loss for Donald Tusk's party in the presidential poll on Sunday could have implications for his coalition. Would a loss on Sunday also have implications for this newfound momentum we're seeing with a new German chancellor who's more hawkish, with a French president who's also talking tough when it comes to Russia? Will that dent Europe's momentum in standing up to Putin?
Well, it could certainly, let's say, tone down the elan that Donald Tusk, the Prime Minister, has had, especially during the Polish presidency of the European Union, that is to create a coalition of the willing in support of Ukraine. And the main axis, so to speak, in that coalition within the European Union is Poland, Germany, France. This is the so-called Weimar Triangle. And indeed, a president that has a very strong language on any association with Germany, because we've just talked about Ukraine, and I'll come back to it, but the language about Germany that you hear from peace and from the presidential candidate, Mr. Nawrocki, is not exactly conducive to close cooperation.
Or was it at the rally you said something about we don't want to be the ones who go and pick asparagus in Germany?
Yeah, exactly. And there is this idea that Germany dominates the EU. So basically, getting closer into European integration, cooperating more in the EU, is actually giving in to German domination. So that's supposed not to be popular. People resent being dominated by Germans for historical reasons. And then there is the Ukrainian card that has been just mentioned, which is very interesting as well, because Poland is a strong supporter of Ukraine's resistance to Russian aggression. Yet, when it comes to coming closer to the European Union, Mr. Nawrocki, in no uncertain terms, but also the candidate, Mr. Trzaskowski, the center pro-European candidate, in the different ways, are saying, before Ukraine gets anywhere near to the EU, it has to come clean about its past, its World War II past. And, Bandera was mentioned, etc. Ukrainian nationalists having slaughtered over 100,000 Poles in Volhynia between 43 and 44. And so you bring this during the campaign, a Ukrainian theme, or anti-Ukrainian theme, you could say, and a German theme or anti-German theme. And clearly that is something that is supposed to win you votes, using the politics of memory, to gain votes in a presidential race, which is about today. It's not about settling accounts in the past. So this is what divides, I think, the two candidates. Mr. Trzaskowski keeps a very strong European commitment, and if he were president, that cooperation within the EU, within the Weimar Triangle, this coalition of the willing that I referred to, would be certainly much easier and much stronger.
Julia Leroux, is the Weimar Triangle in trouble come Monday if it's not Donald Tusk's candidate who wins?
Yeah, definitely, especially because the peace camp is more Atlantist than pro-European, and there would be also the question of the defense of Europe and the European. Sorry, I'm missing the word. Independence on the military point. So it will be difficult to collaborate between France and Germany if we have a candidate that just wants to repeat the same propaganda as Moscow, and he's pro-Trump and reducing the possibilities of more European integration and more European defense.
Pro-Trump, Julia, but in fairness, when the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began, the peace was not pro-Putin at all.
No, it's not. But some of the discourses are the same as what we can hear from the Moscow propaganda. And so and it's especially obvious now when we see the new declaration of Nawrocki regarding Metzden agreement. So we have a shift toward the right-wing opinion regarding the Ukrainian conflict.
All right, well, Brussels clearly favors the candidates aligned with Donald Tusk. Karol Nawrocki got the honors earlier this month of an Oval Office photo op with Donald Trump. Trump, who this week dispatched Kristi Noem, former governor of South Dakota, currently director of Homeland Security. She went to Poland, described the peace candidate's opponent as, quote, a train wreck of a mayor of Warsaw.
If you elected a leader that will work with President Donald J. Trump, the Polish people will have an ally strong that will ensure that you will be able to fight off enemies that do not share your values. You will have strong borders and protect your communities and keep them safe and ensure that your citizens are respected every single day. You will continue to have a U.S. presence here, a military presence, Fort Trump, that we can work together for the security of both of our nations.
Let me ask you, Wojciech Szybelski, your thoughts on Fort Trump, the promise of continued U.S. protection there.
That is a bipartisan objective to keep American troops in Poland. There is even an ongoing conversation with the Department of Defense in the U.S. Should there be any relocation of troops, which U.S. considers costly to keep in Europe, but some of them they would like to, decrease the costs. Poland is welcoming even more U.S. troops if they are being relocated within Europe. This is a strategic objective to ensure that we have a protective arm of the U.S., not just over Poland, but over Europe overall. And Poland is geostrategically located exactly where it matters to contain a potential Russian aggression towards West. For that, Poland has been utilizing numerous approaches over several years, and subsequent governments have been tirelessly trying to secure this objective. The recent slogan, the brand of Fort Trump, has been coined by the outgoing President Andrzej Duda, who basically called it this way in order to have favors, to win favors of Donald Trump for his personal vanity, most likely by calling it his name, but essentially ensuring that this continuation of Polish strategic objective has real-time deliverables. Now, I am surprised that the Homeland Secretary is speaking on a foreign and security policy in Poland if we are to comment on this. There is clear message that we heard that there is during the MAGA movement that has been brought in cooperation with Viktor Orban to Poland to make Poland again sort of a weapon of Orban against the European project. It has been such a situation in which the tail wagged the dog when Budapest has been utilizing Polish position and naivete of the previous government in dealing with the European unity over numerous times. And clearly we see a similar operation here. I only can count on the common sense of Polish people not to be played by that kind of blunt transactional offer by someone who doesn't have really the cards to decide on that.
Bartholomew Wróblewski, you agree?
I think Poland should not strengthen the ties with Europe Europe is centralized enough, and I'm not convinced that the continuation of this process would bring anything for Poland. Europe should be a community of free countries. Poland should have good relationship with America, the same as Europe. And I don't think we should let to weaken the ties with America. In this sense, we are against the policy of many European countries which want to build independent army in Europe. And that is the most basic difference between Trzaskowski and Nawrocki. Nawrocki is for NATO and good relations with America. Trzaskowski is for weakening of these relations and for strengthening independence of Europe, as I said before, for centralization of Europe, for federalization of Europe. So there are two visions, and in 2 days, Polish will decide in which directions should we go.
And we saw during the candidates debate last week, Nawrocki accusing Trzaskowski of illicit foreign backing from Germany and from billionaire George Soros, a claim that the Polish Electoral Commission could not certify in a piece, could not certify. But we also saw that it was picked up on by the chair of the U.S. House Committee on Foreign Affairs, who sent a letter to the president of the European Commission, where he claimed that despite the European Commission's vocal criticism and decision to withhold over $150 billion from Poland for alleged rule of law violations under the previous peace government, it has remained conspicuously silent despite clear evidence of rule of law violations under Tusk's administration. Julia Leroux, let me ask you your reaction to that letter.
May I say one thing?
Please, go ahead, Bartholomew.
Well, now the problem of such kind of funds is not new in Poland. For years, leftist and left-oriented foundations got millions of euro and dollars from America and from Europe. And in this way, the other countries influence Polish politics. I don't think it's clear. It's
anything new.
It was and it's not honest. It's not honest. So many Polish citizens don't want to continue such practices. I don't think it is good for Europe as well.
Julia Leroux, is there foreign meddling in this election?
Not only in this election.
Let me put the question to Julia Leroux.
Well, it's always funny to see when we are in those cases of accusation of meddling that it is mostly used to also interfere, but for the other camp. I would just want to reply to this foreign funds accusations regarding leftist organizations. It is also the case of actually right-wing organizations. If we look at the report made by New Data, especially on the question of foreign investments in conservative fundamentalist organization in Poland, but not only. I'm talking about Ordo, but they are also on other organizations. So yeah, there's definitely foreign and national interest during elections, and so each camp has its allies.
And it is a strange time that we live in. There was a piece this week on the U.S. State Department's Substack blog, rather mechanically worded, by the way, this post by a young advisor who doubles down on this whole values issues that has come up several times in the conversation. He writes, "Our hope is that both Europe and the United States can recommit to our Western heritage and that European nations will end the weaponization of government against those seeking to defend it. Jacques Rupnik, there's been plenty of culture wars in recent years in Poland. Fights over abortion, fights over the role of the judiciary. Your reaction to this posting that was again put out on the State Department's official blog?
Well, the sentence says the West should unite. Well,
it's not just the West should unite. It's talking about Western values.
Western values, okay.
Western heritage.
Well, you would have to define what the Western heritage, Western values. Of course, we believe in Western values, but we may have different definitions of what that means. And main concern, I think, in Europe has been, and that applies to East Central Europe as well as Western Europe, has been that the United States, and including the State Department, lost interest in the common Western approach. So they were defining Europe as a kind of, if not an enemy, at least a rival, or somebody who's a profiteer, somebody who's unduly trying to profit from the United States. And that, of course, plays then in the Polish campaign, as has just been pointed out. One candidate, Mr. Nawrocki, says, we are the supporters of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is supporting us. He sent the emissary here. And there is a CPAC, conservative American support for him. On the other hand, Mr. Trzaskowski says we want to preserve close ties to the United States. However, we are very strongly committed to Europe. So you have there the dividing line between the two candidates. Both oppose Russian aggression in Ukraine. Both would like to preserve the US engagement in Europe. One believes it's enough to have a picture with an emissary from the White House. The other believes that you may hope for the best, but you may also have to prepare the European defense capacity just in case you need it. And so we have there, the undertones of a dividing line between the two candidates. I think that is very interesting, because normally elections are fought strictly on domestic issues, on the economy most of the time, sometimes on cultural, social issues like the abortion question. This time you have also this dimension is being played by both candidates, Europe, America. And that is very interesting. And that is important for the future of Europe. It's important for Poland, I would say. It's important for Central Europe, because Central Europe is divided. Basically, the Visegrad group, you have the Czechs and the Poles together, and you have the Slovaks and Hungarians. You have Fico in Slovakia close to Orban. So what is this election is important for Central Europe, which way it's going to go. And of course, it's watched very closely in the whole of Europe, because as I said, capacity of having this coalition of the willing cannot be delivered without Poland.
It's certainly drawn the attention of the entire continent. Jacques Rupnik, I want to thank you. I want to thank Bartholomew Wróblewski for being with us from Poznan, Wojciech Szybelski in Warsaw, Julia Laureau in Richelieu in the Loire Valley of France. Thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.